I never thought it'd be the kind of man who would betray his own brother. But when he left for that 6-month work assignment overseas, I couldn't resist my sister-in-law. It destroyed me from the inside out. I was just an ordinary guy stuck in a dead-end job, coming home every night to an empty apartment. The silence pressed in like a weight on my chest. No one waiting, no warmth, no touch that made me feel seen. My life had become this gray routine. Lonely, sexless, invisible. I told myself I was fine, that this was just how things were for guys like me. But deep down, the hunger gnawed, quiet and constant, making every empty evening feel like a slow ache. Then my brother called one evening, his voice casual over the line. "Hey, man, can you move in temporarily? Just to look after her while I'm gone? The house is too big for her alone, and it'd feel better knowing you're there." I hesitated, but he sounded so sure, so trusting. How could I say no to family? So I packed a bag and drove over that same weekend. The moment I stepped into their house, the air shifted. She was there in the doorway, wearing that thin summer dress, light fabric clinging just enough in the warm breeze, her hair loose around her shoulders. Our eyes met, and something electric passed between us, unspoken. I swallowed hard, forcing a smile as I carried my things inside. "Thanks for doing this," she said softly, her voice like honey in the quiet hall. I nodded, but already my pulse was racing. The high-proximity situation had begun, and I could feel the gravity pulling me closer whether I wanted it or not. At first I felt this strong reluctance, this resistance that twisted in my gut. She was my brother's wife. The moral weight of it hit me like cold water every time I looked at her. I kept telling myself to stay away, to keep the doors closed, to focus on anything else. "This is wrong," it whispered to the mirror in the guest room at night. "Chess off limits. You're just here to help." But the house felt too small, too intimate, with only the two of us breathing the same air day after day. Yet the repeated daily proximity created this unbearable sensory tension I couldn't escape. Every morning in the kitchen, her sweet vanilla scent would linger as she reached for the coffee mugs, warm and inviting, wrapping around me like an invisible embrace. Accidental brushes. Her soft hip grazing mine while we cooked side by side, the heat of her skin through thin fabric sending sparks up my spine. Her laughter would fill the quiet house like a forbidden song, light and melodic, making the empty rooms feel alive in a way that terrified me. I'd catch myself staring at the curve of her neck when she turned away, my breath catching, wondering how something so simple could feel so dangerous. My internal monologue tortured me constantly, a war raging behind my calm face. "Chess family, this is wrong. You can't do this to him." But it clashed harder every hour with the growing craving for her warmth, her touch, the kind of physical pleasure I hadn't felt in years. The ache built slowly, like a storm gathering on the horizon, pulling me under even as I fought to stay afloat. I'd lie awake listening to her move around the house, imagining what it would be like if... The first boundary crossing happened one rainy night when the storm rattled the windows. She came to the living room looking tense, shoulders tight from the long day. "My back is killing me," she murmured, eyes soft and pleading. "Would you mind giving me a quick massage, just to ease the stress?" My hands trembled as I agreed, telling myself it was innocent. But when my palms met her bare skin, the electricity surged through me, hot and undeniable. I couldn't stop, even when she let out a soft sound that made my blood run hotter, her body relaxing under my touch in a way that blurred every line I'd drawn. Soon we crossed more lines right there in the living room after dinner, the lights low and the rain still falling outside. Her body pressed against mine on the couch as we watched, something neither of us was really seeing. The air grew thick, charged with everything unsaid. And then, our first desperate kiss happened, tasting like guilt and raw need, her lips so close, so warm, pulling me into a surrender I knew I couldn't come back from. We entered this sustained indulgence phase, sneaking into each other's rooms at night when the house was dark and silent. The blend of intense physical pleasure with an emotional dependency made me feel alive for the first time in years, like I'd been drowning and she was the air I'd been missing. Whispering that this fragile secret couldn't last. And then one early morning, the phone rang unexpectedly. My brother's name flashing on the screen. She answered it, still flushed, beside me in bed, her voice shaky as she tried to sound normal, while I lay frozen in panic. the hidden truth of our betrayal suddenly hanging in the air between us like a blade about to fall. I told myself I could handle it, that the reluctance burning in my chest was enough to keep me safe. She was my brother's wife, after all. Every time our eyes met across the breakfast table, I felt the weight of that truth pressing down, heavy as guilt, sharp as a warning I refused to fully hear. It stepped back when she passed too close in the narrow hallway, mutter something about needing to check my emails, anything to put space between us. But the house kept shrinking around us, walls echoing with only our footsteps and the low hum of the fridge at night. Still, the daily closeness wore me down like water on stone. Mornings in the kitchen, her vanilla scent would drift over as she leaned past me for the sugar, warm and sweet, clinging to my shirt long after she moved away. Our arms would brush while chopping vegetables, her soft hip grazing mine for half a second, sending a slow heat crawling up my skin that I tried to ignore by focusing on the knife in my hand. Her laughter when she told some small story about her day, light, effortless, filling the quiet rooms like a melody I was allowed to hum along to. It'd catch the way sunlight caught in her hair or how her fingers lingered on the mug handle. The war inside me never let up. Chef's family, it repeats silently while washing dishes beside her, knuckles white around the sponge. This is wrong, you can't want this, not from her, yet the craving grew anyway. Quiet at first, then louder, a pull toward her warmth, her voice. The simple comfort of another body, near mine after so many empty years. I hadn't felt wanted in so long that even the smallest glance from her made my pulse stumble. I'd lie in the guest bed staring at the ceiling, fists clenched, telling myself tomorrow I'd keep more distance, only to wake craving the sound of her moving through the house again. One rainy evening the tension finally cracked. Thunder rolled outside as she stood in the doorway, shoulders drawn tight, eyes tired from another long day. "My back is killing me," she said softly, almost shy. "Would you mind? Just a quick massage, nothing fancy." I hesitated, heart hammering, but nodded, convincing myself it was harmless. My hands shook slightly as they met her shoulders through the thin fabric at first. Then she pulled the strap lower, skin bare and warm under my palms. The contact sent sparks racing through me, electric and alive, her muscles easing beneath my touch in a way that made everything feel dangerously close. I kept going even when her breathing changed, slow and deep. A tiny sound escaping that made my own chest tighten with something I couldn't name and didn't want to stop. After dinner, the living room felt smaller, lights dimmed against the continuing rain. We sat on the couch, closer than we should have been, the movie forgotten as her knee rested lightly against my leg. The air grew thick, heavy with words we hadn't said. Then her hand found mine, tentative, fingers brushing in a way that wasn't accidental anymore. Our faces turned at the same moment, breath mingling, and the first kiss came desperate and trembling, tasting of shared hesitation and a hunger it buried too long. It stopped just short of more, but the pull remained, magnetic and frightening. We slipped into those stolen nights soon after, moving through the dark house like shadows drawn together. The mix of overwhelming closeness and the quiet emotional need left me breathless each time, as if I'd been starved of touch, and she was the only one who could remind me I was still here, still healing. Yet shame hovered at the edges, a cold whisper reminding me whose home this was, whose bed I was avoiding. The craving only deepened, making every glance, every shared silence feel heavier with what we both knew we shouldn't want. And the pull kept growing stronger, even as I wondered how much longer I could pretend this was still under control. The first boundary crossing happened one rainy night when she asked me for a back massage to ease her. I stood there frozen for a second, rain hammering the windows like it knew what was coming. Her voice was soft, almost apologetic. "Just my shoulders, they've been tight all day." I told myself it was nothing, just helping family, but my hands already felt too warm as I followed her to the couch. She sat with her back to me, pulling her hair aside, the thin straps of her top slipping lower until bare skin glowed in the low lamplight. The moment my palms met her, heat bloomed between us, slow and undeniable, like stepping into a storm you can't outrun. I worked carefully at first, thumbs pressing circles, feeling the tension melt under my touch while my own breath grew shallow. She sighed, long and low, her body leaning back just a fraction, and that small sound sent fire racing through my veins. I couldn't stop. Traced higher, brushing the curve of her neck, and she tilted her head, offering more without a word. The air thickened, heavy with the scent of her vanilla lotion mixed with rain-soaked earth drifting through the cracked window. Every stroke felt like crossing another invisible line, my mind screaming, "This is your brother's wife," while my body refused to listen. She whispered my name once, barely audible, and it hung between us like a confession neither of us could take back. Soon we crossed more lines in the living room after dinner, her body pressing against mine on the couch as the TV flickered forgotten in the background. Plates cleared, wine glasses half empty, the room felt smaller, warmer, our shoulders touching in a way that started innocent but quickly washed. Her knee brushed mine, lingered, and I didn't pull away. Instead I turned, heart pounding so loud I was sure she could hear it, and found her eyes already on me, dark and searching. The space between our faces shrank inch by inch, breath mingling warm and sweet with the faint taste of red wine. Our lips met in a kiss that tasted like guilt and raw, aching need, desperate and trembling, as if we'd both been holding back for weeks. Her hand rested lightly on my chest, not pushing away but not pulling closer either, caught in the same war I felt tripping me apart. We broke apart gasping, foreheads almost touching, the almost moment stretching until I thought I might drown in it. I wanted to say we should stop, needed to say it, but the words stuck somewhere behind the hunger that had been building since the day I moved in. We entered the sustained indulgence phase, sneaking into each other's rooms at night like thieves stealing moments that didn't belong to us. The house grew quiet after midnight, only the creak of floorboards and our careful footsteps breaking the silence. I'd lie awake listening for her door, pulse racing with shame and anticipation twisted together so tight I couldn't tell them apart. One night she came to me instead, slipping under the covers with nothing but the warmth of her skin through thin fabric, her breath warm against my neck as she whispered how she couldn't sleep without feeling close. Our bodies aligned in the dark, gravity pulling us together, every shared tremble and sigh deepening the dependency that made me feel alive for the first time in years. Mornings after, we'd move through the kitchen pretending nothing had changed, but the air crackled with what we now carried between us. I'd catch her glance lingering a second too long, her fingers brushing mine when passing a mug, and the ache would return sharper than before. Each stolen night blurred the edges of right and wrong until the craving felt bigger than both of us. Intense waves of closeness mixed with quiet emotional need that left me breathless and terrified. Yet the shame never left, hovering like a shadow at the edge of every touch, reminding me whose home this still was. Last night the pull felt stronger than ever, her body curving into mine in the dim glow of the bedside clock, our whispered words fading into heavy silence filled only with heartbeats. Knowing we were sinking deeper, wondering how much longer before the weight of it all came crashing down around us. She stirred beside me, skin still warm from the night, her fingers tangled loosely in the sheet as she reached for it without thinking. Her voice came out soft at first, sleepy, then it cracked, just a fraction, when she realized who was on the line. "Hey," Yuri calling early. I froze, heart slamming against my ribs, the air suddenly too thin to breathe. My brother's laugh traveled through the speaker, distant and cheerful, asking how she was holding up, if I was being any help around the house. She answered with careful words, but her cheeks were flushed deep pink, her free hand clutching the blanket tighter as if it could hide what we'd just been. I could hear the slight tremble she tried to swallow down, the way her breath hitched when she glanced at me, eyes wide with the same panic flooding my veins. We were still too close, bodies separated by nothing but shared guilt and the faint scent of last night's closeness clinging to the pillows. She ended the call quickly, saying she'd call him back later, voice almost steady. Almost. The moment the line went dead, the room felt heavier, the silence louder than any confession. I wanted to reach for her again, to pull her back under the covers and pretend the world outside hadn't just brushed against our secret, but my hand stopped inches from hers. The crack we couldn't ignore anymore. My mind spun with every reason we should stop right there. He was my blood. This house was his. Every stolen breath we'd taken was built on betrayal that now had a voice. Yet when she turned to me, lips parted like she was about to speak the words that would end us, something deeper pulled harder. The obsession had rooted too deep, twisting around the loneliness it carried for years until it felt like the only real thing left. I chose to keep going, whispered it against her shoulder instead of pulling away, told her we'd be more careful, that this fire between us was worth the burn, even if it turned everything to ash. She didn't argue, just closed her eyes and leaned in, her forehead resting against mine in a surrender that tasted bittersweet. In that suspended moment, I saw my ordinary life for what it had become, no longer invisible, no longer empty, but lit from within by a hunger that would destroy the family ties I once thought unbreakable. One moment of weakness, and I had traded safety for this aching Alevines, knowing the cost would come due sooner than we wanted. The days after blurred into careful distance during daylight and desperate closeness when the lights went out. We moved around each other like dancers avoiding the edge of a cliff, every glance carrying the weight of what we hid, but the pull never lessened. If anything, the fear sharpened it, made every touch feel like the last. I lay awake some nights listening to her breathing beside me, wondering how long before a single slip would unravel it all, before my brother's return turned our fragile world into wreckage. The shame sat heavy in my chest, yet it never quite killed the craving, only made it burn hotter, like fuel on a fire we both refused to extinguish. So here I am, carrying this secret like a stone in my pocket, smooth from constant turning, heavy enough to drag me under. If your brother was away and his wife was right there every single day, filling the quiet rooms with her warmth and laughter and that unspoken invitation in her eyes, would you have been able to resist? Or would you have fallen just as deep, knowing it would leave scars that never quite heal? I still don't know if I regret it. Only that I can't stop reaching for the memory of her beside me, even as the distance between what we have and what we should have grows wider with every passing hour. The ache lingers, quiet, relentless, whispering that some hungers refuse to die, no matter how much they cost.